Hi everyone, I'm speaking to Mike Volpe again today, and he is an investigative journalist exposing corruption within the family court over in America. He's based in Chicago, and it's exactly the same over here in the UK. It's just that we are more shrouded in secrecy, so we don't have investigative reporters like Mike Volpe being able to expose just as easily. So it's great to be able to speak to Mike. I've spoke to Mike before on my channel, so if you have a look, scroll past, if you've not seen the video, I recommend you watching that one. And so over to you, Mike. How are you?
Good. And I watched Dispatches, the documentary. I think it came out like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I was surprised that the law you guys have, that's like 60 years old, where unless a judge approves it, you can't report on any part. We don't have that, but that doesn't mean we have open courtrooms. We have slightly less restrictive, but and in our discussion, I'll go into it a little bit because I'm dealing with it in a lot of the cases. So we don't have quite open courtrooms as far as family courtrooms. If you're charged with a crime, interestingly enough, like if you're child molestation, even though it's a child, completely open, though probably the kid's name would be blocked out. But I was very surprised about how restrictive the law is in Britain. So it's more difficult, but that documentary came out, there is reporting on it, but they make it extremely hard in England to report on this stuff. And it's supposedly for the safety of the minors, and it's bogus. It's the retired chief judge said it, this protects bad judges, whether that was the intent or not. So I agree, you guys have extremely restrictive laws, but don't think in America it's completely open, and it should be a lot more open. These are the reasons they give are excuses. The children's privacy is a lot less important than protection from abuse, number one, and the exposure of corruption, number two. So this idea that, oh my God, what if some detail gets out? Well, what if? That's a lot less problematic than if you put a kid with a child molester, than if a judge violates the law, that if he screams at people or she, and you can't report that because there's a law that says the judge has to approve it. So if the judge acts improperly, the judge has to approve whether or not you can report it. Absolutely amazing. We don't have that in the US. So I've been threatened with stuff where they claim that I've released things that are private. It gets dicey. There's a couple of cases where they stopped stories temporarily in the US. But yeah, what you're saying is absolutely accurate. It's a lot more restrictive in England, and that probably leads to a lot more problems. The more oversight from the media and from others, the better. And so I agree with you on that. So the last time I was on, we talked about, I did a big investigation in St. Louis County, and then you had my colleague, Megan Fox, who also did the same thing. So since then, we've in St. Louis, so St. Louis is in Missouri. So for your global audience, the US, that's the country. Then we have 50 states, and each of the states has a bunch of counties, and the counties are cities. So that's like the sizes as they go up. So St. Louis County is a county in Missouri, which is in like the Midwest. Very big corruption there. I got this great video of a bunch of corrupt guardian ad litem who didn't know they were being recorded. So all hell broke loose. And I always get contacted, but this was on a scale I'd never seen before. So I've picked up some investigations. So I wanted to talk about two. Sure. So first of all, the state of North Carolina, that's like on the East Coast, right next to the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm looking at the entire state, and then Miami-Dade, which is the Dade County, so that area, that's in Florida, also on the East Coast, but on the bottom. So as far as North Carolina is concerned, so basically three themes. So child protective services, and I think they call the equivalent as CAFCAS in England. They
might be. I was thinking about that because you've got the guardian ad litem. That is CAFCAS. That is our CAFCAS, and they're called guardians. And really? Then child, yeah. So I was thinking afterwards, that is more like social services, the child protective.
Okay, so social services, and also
like the local authority social services.
Sometimes it's called social services here too. So they have a bunch of names. When I say child protective services, that's just the Yeah, Kafkas, that's like our guardian ad litem, and
Sure.
we have the same problem in
They're
North
called
Carolina.
guardians as well. They're just
Right,
not called guardian ad litem. They're just called a
right,
guardian.
but same thing, but
Yeah,
same idea.
absolutely. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Right. So what happens in North Carolina is the CPS, they like to what I refer to as swoop in and snatch children. What do I mean by that? Court orders optional. They don't really care. Reason optional. They just want to take the kids. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into it. And I think there's a similar dynamic in England if somebody really wants to dig into it, but there is a financial incentive to do this. Money flows from the feds, from the US to each state, all the way down to the counties, and they get more money the more kids they take. So why would they do it? For that reason. So the second thing is they do a terrible job between Child Protective Services, the court, and the police of investigating child abuse. And then what happens is the system turns on the protective parent. Does that sound familiar?
It really does. Yeah.
Right. Last thing is I found two nonprofits at least that are what I call wolves in sheep's clothing. One of them is called the Children's Law Center of Central North Carolina. The other one's the Council on Children's Rights. So they all both pretend like they protect children. Now, if you go on their website, you're going to see that they constantly say we get involved in high conflict divorces. So if you guys want to find an article of mine, it's called Making Divorce Pay. And I think they use this term in English. I think they use it everywhere. It's totally bogus. It's a term that court actors made up in order to exploit the system by claiming that it's such a mess, only we can fix it. In reality, they exploit it. And that's what these nonprofits do, and they look like they're helping. So let's start with the first piece. To understand about the swooping in, snatching children, you start in Cherokee County, one of the counties in North Carolina. In 2019, the Associated Press, the wire service, very big deal, did a long investigation, and they found that in hundreds of cases, these social workers would come in, swoop in, take children, and then they'd coerce what they called a custody and visitation agreement. And this was a way to subvert the court process. So you would be agreeing. They would never explain what would happen. And these, they called them CVAs, would then be used to just take the kids. Hundreds of cases. So people have been sued, charged criminally, and at least one guy, his name is David Hughes, has been pled guilty to subverting the process, whatever crimes they've committed. But this is a major scandal. Wow. And what I found is that in many counties, there are variations, whether an attitude or maybe something like a custody and visitation agreement where they come in and they take the kids for no reason. So I got a great audio from one of the cases I was following. It's Jeff Farrington versus Danielle Jesser. And the caseworker, his name is Kent Webb. He's on the phone and he took the kids from mom. So why did he take the kids from mom? She had sold her house, hadn't bought the new house yet. She was in a hotel. And then she's got two twin 4-year-olds, and they might have been 3 at the time. One of them opened the door and walked out. And they thought that was reason to take the kids. They thought that was enough. So she asked for a court order. And he goes, I don't have a court order. And she said, I want my kids back. And he goes, I'm not giving you your kids back. And so that's an attitude. He thinks that these court orders are optional. And by the way, I not only did I confront him, but he started answering questions. And all of that privacy stuff, he's not actually supposed to do any of that. But he went ahead and answered the questions anyway. I interviewed a woman in Moore County, which is nearby, and she said that on her mom's behest, DSS or Child Protective Services shows up with a bunch of cops, just takes her kids. I interviewed a guy named Randy Davis. He has a very notorious case. He was a whistleblower, so cops and CPS just showed up in his car and took his daughter. Eventually, they were trying to charge him with crimes because they said he was illegally communicating with his own daughter. So you see these kinds of examples all throughout the state of North Carolina. And so it really speaks to an idea of that they just don't think the laws apply to them. And so in that case, Danielle Jesser, Jeff Farrington, the judge during a hearing, he was trying to scold the parents because he believed, and the judge's name is Gordon Miller, because he believed that they weren't getting along. And so he said, I called Terry Boucher, a lawyer with Forsyth DSS, that's another county in North Carolina, and she, and this is why I say it, swoops in and snatches children. So he was actually using their, like, the perception of them to try to coerce the parents. And I remembered one other case. There's another case out of Davidson County, which is right next door to Forsyth. Katrina Milburn, her daughter was sleeping in the car and she was talking on the cell phone right outside the car. And the next thing you know, cops, DSS, CPS, they all show up, swoop in on her. And there's a video, it's like 5 seconds, it's on my YouTube channel of I don't remember the name, but the social worker saying, you can either cooperate with us or you can't. But if you don't, your kids will be gone even longer.
Wow.
So and this is the kind of pressure and coercion that they apply.
Yeah.
So then as far as the child abuse, I spoke to a retired cop. So this is one retired police officer's opinion from North Carolina, but he told me that cops don't like to investigate child abuse because one, it's more paperwork, and two, there's a greater chance they go to court. And apparently those two things cops really dislike. So they do these very bogus investigate, according to one retired cop, keep in mind. So it doesn't mean it's true, but that is sort of what I found. And so as far as not investigating child abuse, the poster child for that in terms of a case is Joanne McDowell, which is a case that's similar to yours. So tell me, this sounds familiar. She believed her kids are being drugged and raped by her ex. She begged for a drug test. DSS refused to investigate. When the drug test came back positive, what did they say? Mom must have planted the drugs. That's your story, right?
Yes, pretty much the same. Yeah, of course.
Right, except this one happened.
That makes
Except
sense.
the big difference, her accent is completely different than yours. So two sides of the pond, very similar.
Yeah.
And so she eventually fled to Canada. Canada heard the exact same evidence and said, they gave her a protective order. Her ex can't get near her in Canada, but if she steps foot in America, she could be arrested because there's an active arrest warrant. And it gets complicated what the crime is, but if he has custody and she takes the kids, there's some sort of a crime involved. Yeah. So getting back to another case, Danielle Jesser versus Jeff Farrington. So check this out. There was a cross-examination during part of the trial that didn't finish, where they talked about how two social workers, the 4-year-old at the time, disclosed to them that his dad put him in a dog crate. Two social workers. Hold on. A witness said dad threw the kid while he was in a car seat. There's photo after photo after photo of the kids coming back with bruises, right? And the latest one, there's a video of the kid with a big bruise right here. And he goes, I got hit with a big stick. By who? By dad. But what happens? So they had a guardian ad litem from the Children's Law Center, Central North Carolina. Her name is Sara Royster. Yeah. When she was asked about the dog crate, she said, well, I'm not the investigator, even though on their website, they say the guardian ad litem is responsible for investigating all aspects of the case. So she took a step back from it. And then she said, I'm going to let DSS investigate it. And of course, DSS never find it founded. They never say it's it's completed. So none of these things are ever found to be founded. And then the craziest thing happened. So they just had a custody trial on July 30th. So a few days ago, at the end of June, or maybe the beginning of July, it went from Forsyth County Department of Social Services to Davie County, which is a county that's in a random part of North Carolina. And then on July 6th or 7th, a social worker, her name is Kristen Rash, she contacted me, even though I'm a journalist. She was dumb enough to do that. And so I had sent the video of the boy disclosing that he'd been hit with a big stick to Forsyth, and these guys apparently forwarded to Davie. So somehow it gets switched to Davie. So they're supposedly investigating this child abuse, except what happens? Custody trial comes about. There's two social workers from Davie County, and they may have visited each parent twice, maybe, or possibly once. They give their custody recommendations. Both, I don't know what the other guy's name is. Both Rash and the other guy downplay, from what I'm told. And if I'm wrong, I'll get the audio and I'll correct myself. The hitting with the big stick, the child abuse, and upplay that Jeff is better fit to take care of the kids. The social worker from Forsyth County, even though they're done, her name is Ayanna Brown, she testified to something similar, and Sara Royster, the guardian ad litem, had already testified to something similar. So you're wondering, how does a child abuser get custody?
Why?
Well,
Yeah,
when you add in all of these people, it makes it look, well, the experts say it. The experts say it. And part of the problem with our system is we allow too many of these experts, like Kafkas. They should go. You want to fix your system in England? Get rid of Kafkas. It won't fix it all, but it'll help. And that's how they do it. They hide abuse. And apparently Jeff, when he testified, admitted that he taught his 4-year-old son how to give the middle finger. That I don't know what else he admitted to. That he does the Sig Heil salute. The guy is a neo-Nazi. All right. But no, all of that is fine. The 4 experts are now on record saying he's the more fit parent. And so what happened? Apparently, despite all of these experts testifying, Danielle's lawyer, who apparently is a good lawyer, his name is Paul Mengert, really like ate them up on cross-examination. And so right around
yesterday, actually.
I'm sorry?
I listened to a bit of that yesterday.
That's a different one. I haven't gotten the new one, but yeah, but he is good. His name is Paul Mengert. So, and then right around like 2:30 their time, a woman named Melissa Chun came in, and she had the same judge, and she secretly recorded this judge being just horrible. He threatened to put her in jail just because she raised the possibility it might be forgery in the file. Like this document seems like it's forged, and he's like, I'm going to put you in jail just for raising that. So once he saw her, he started a confrontation. He demanded that everyone who was in the courtroom like say out loudly their name, address, and phone number so that everyone, including Jeff, the child abuser, gets it. And then he called a mistrial, and he called a mistrial because a witness may have been threatened. Now, that might have been me. So I got a report about what Miss Rash testified to. And after I got the report, now she was done testifying, of course, I sent her an email, and I don't have the email exactly in front of me, but I said, I understand you testified today. If it's what I'm told it is, and I'm going to be getting a copy of the recording, your career is over. And this, they apparently said, is witness tampering, even though she was done being a witness. And so with about 2 hours left, this guy called a mistrial. Now, folks, you need to understand, mistrial is very serious because you went through hours and hours of testimony, and you're saying all of it is for nothing.
Yeah.
And so is witness tampering. So if he doesn't prove that there's witness tampering, this guy's got big problems. His name again is Gordon Miller. So the other woman who I mentioned, her name is Melissa Chun. She had Miller, she had the Children's Law Center, and she had Foresight DSS, including Ayanna Brown. So she believes her daughter is being molested. The strongest piece of evidence is this affidavit from a friend of hers who said that her daughter, in front of the friend, her friend's daughter, and other witnesses, dropped her pants, reached for another girl's crotch while encouraging the other girl to reach for her crotch. Does it sound like pretty strong evidence? Not according to DSS. What Ayanna Brown said is, you need to stop making false allegations of abuse. And so basically, Melissa feels, and there's strong evidence of this, that they are covering up Tyson's, and her ex is Tyson Patterson, who's kind of a local legend. He's a big deal basketball player in the area, which may mean everything. It may mean nothing. He hasn't been a basketball player in a long time. But so there's evidence that they're covering up his child abuse. And she's got some issues. She's had drug problems in the past. She's not a perfect person, but child abuse and drug problems, so that's 2 out of Forsyth County. And I also want to mention, it's not just women who get abused. The poster child for men being abused in North Carolina is a guy named Neil Shelton, who's been arrested almost 100 times. A couple of times he was arrested at his own car dealership. He would be arrested driving his own car. I know it's hard to explain myself. What you need to understand is his ex-wife's a divorce attorney, is a woman named Sara Stevens, who is the number 3 in the North Carolina House of Representatives. So that means she's a very powerful politician. At the same time, she's a divorce lawyer. So what she did was she engineered his arrest. And while he sat in jail on bogus charges, she went ahead with the divorce. And the judge ruled that his ex would get everything in 100% custody while he was in jail. Wow. And so he hasn't seen his kids since, I think, 2012. And so the last thing is the 2 nonprofits. So Sara Royster, as I said, you can listen to Mengert go off on her, and she downplayed that dog crate as much as she could.
Yeah, I listened to a bit of that. It was disgraceful. It was
Right.
that didn't matter.
Right. It was quite remarkable how just anything she could to downplay that the guy put his kid into a dog crate.
Yeah.
So Melissa had the same thing. So in one of her court hearings, what happened was Tyson calls the guardian ad litem. Her name is Charlize Powell, and he goes, my daughter's really afraid of her mom all of a sudden. I don't know what to do. And Powell goes, well, why don't you call DSS? And he goes, no, that's a bad idea. I've called them a lot. She's called them a lot. You know, that'll just make it more messy. And so he's unwilling to call the Department of Social Services. So Charlize says, well, then maybe I should investigate it. And she's actually in her testimony said, you know, I don't know what happened, but I asked your daughter to draw, and Melissa was representing herself. So I asked your daughter to draw a picture when I was thinking of my mom, and she drew a broken heart. And so I don't know what that means, but maybe until we figure it out, you shouldn't see her at all. This is what the woman says, right? So a child discloses, here's the juxtaposition. In one case with the exact same group as guardian ad litem, because they're both with the Children's Law Center, and you should know the Children's Law Center is out of Wake Forest University, which is kind of a big university. It's in the ACC. Every once in a while, they got a good basketball team, but they dominate that county, Forsyth County. So basically, if you graduate from Wake Forest University Law, you probably will do very well practicing in Forsyth County. So in one case, a boy discloses to two social workers that his father put him into a dog crate, and you distance yourself. And in the other case, the father calls you to say the daughter is afraid. The daughter draws a broken heart, and you think that's enough to keep mom away until you figure it out. Yeah. So the other one is the Council on Children's Rights, and they're out of Mecklenburg County. And so I think there's about 100 counties, and I've already named about 10 to 15. So pretty much the entire state. So the two cases, Brianne Hudson, this is probably going to be very familiar to a lot of your audience. Her ex abandons the family for months at a time. It's probably not quite to where it's illegal, but he would show up and then not show up. And then he wants back in, and his kids are resistant, and he brings in the Children's Rights Council, and they say, well, mom must be alienating you.
Oh, of course.
And now mom doesn't see the kids. The other one is Amy Urban, and her guardian ad litem actually put in a motion to have her jailed. So, and these are people who are supposedly helping the kids. And so that's basically North Carolina from top to bottom. You have all kinds of problems. Yeah. And a lot of it is funds. There's also something called Ryland's Law, which is a local law.
Oh, you just froze.
And all of these streams, these laws. I'm sorry?
You're back again. It just froze for a couple of seconds. But
okay, so all of these laws that they do is they create perverse incentives to do this because you get more money to do it. The clean cases where you say the abusive parent is bad, you remove them, the protective parent gets the kid. There's very little money in that. Sure. That's why it happens, not just in North Carolina, but basically in the entire country. And I think that the system works in a similar way. I know I've seen a couple of articles out of New Zealand where like social workers will say, but if I don't take your child, I won't get my bonus. Oh my. So I think there are incentives for these kinds of things all around the world, and that's one of the reasons why it happens. So Miami-Dade. So that county, so basically what I found is a ring of lawyers, judges, guardian ad litem, and other court professionals who corrupt the system to give kids to the abuser, but also to create these prolonged, and there's it's called Family Crossroads Services Incorporated, and they are a company that provides supervised visitation services. Now, that's a very strange company. Why would anyone think there's so much business in supervised visitation that you'd actually create a company? It's like somebody on the inside told you that this is the way to make money. Yeah. So I've interviewed 3 people, 2 men and a woman. And so there's something very interesting about the 3 interviews. Eric Sattin's currently in jail. I interviewed him. His daughter, number one, so there's there's a term, I don't say it popularized, that I've used a lot. It's called the silver bullet technique. It's when you use false allegations of abuse to leverage into your divorce or custody.
Yeah.
And his ex-wife did it brilliantly, except that it was caught on body cam by the cop. She called in a domestic violence situation. She told the cops one thing at the beginning, and 8 minutes later, it's the opposite. First, she said she didn't fall. Then she said she did fall.
Okay.
First, she said she had no bruises. Then she said she did have bruises. And I had domestic violence advocates and victims defend her. And no, look, if your story doesn't match, your story doesn't match. All right. And stop saying that, stop making excuses. Number one, it was like 8 minutes later. Number two, I understand it's hard to remember, but you're not supposed to get away with saying he didn't push me on the ground, and 8 minutes later say he did. You're not supposed to get away with that, and she did. Absolutely. So she's able to get him arrested. That leads to a protective order, and it just damages him from there. At one point, his daughter, who I think was 5, came to him and said, "Grandma is saying to me that I need to say that you are molesting me." She said it in a different way, but basically that's what she said, right?
That helps the rest of us, doesn't it? It's just...
Right. So he reports that, and the next thing you know, they're accusing him of coaching her to say she's being coached.
Oh,
I kid you not. And the court accepts it. The court accepts it. So the guardian ad litem, in that case, her name is Cindy Kamen. She's got a laundry list of victims, but one guy I talked to, his name is Ariel Cabrera. The one anecdote I remember, she refused to call him back, refused to do anything. Finally, she did. So she shows up for an in-home visit. A half hour later, she's asleep. Okay, so that's how seriously she takes her job, right?
Very professional.
Right, and so why did Eric go to jail? So the orders against him were so restrictive that he wasn't allowed to file his own motions. He wasn't allowed to contact other litigants. And then he violated those restrictive terms and they put him in jail. But in reality, the reason they put him in jail is because he did the interview with me. The interview was potent. So the latest is, it started at 20 days, it was up to 180 days. He's between 40 and 60 right now. There's now a agreed order. When I say in quotation marks, that means he didn't really agree. The order says that he gives up his First Amendment rights, his right to free speech. He can't do interviews. He can't talk to me. He can't talk to any other media. He can't release any information. And if he agrees to that, then they'll let him out of jail. So as a result of that order, a lawyer named Joel Hirschhorn contacts me. And he says, "Please look at paragraph 5. We expect you to comply. You're on notice." The "you're on notice" is the exact quote. So I look at paragraph 5, and I'm like, I don't think there can possibly be an order that says I need to do anything, because number one, I'm not party to the case. Number two, the Constitution trumps whatever order the judge might put in place. And the order actually says that Eric is ordered to request, that's a key word, and it's actually request in the order, that I remove these things. And that's it. So it doesn't actually require me to do anything. Furthermore, if he's requesting, then obviously I'm not ordered to do anything.
Optional.
So I've interviewed 3 people. Gabe Shapiro is the other one. Gabe, his, I think, 5-year-old son disclosed sexual abuse. That sounds familiar. He's been kept away. They claim that he has a drug problem. He's taken 15 drug tests. They've all come back negative, but somehow he has a drug problem, right? And they kept his kids away despite that. After he went on my show, they filed some motion and it's heard immediately. And he can still go on shows, but he can't talk about any of the psychologists who are on the case, any of the reports that are in the case. He can say he has a case. He can't say very much more. The third woman is Jennifer Gold. Go ahead.
If they didn't have anything to hide, if they weren't crooked, they'd be pleased about it. But because why, if they're just doing good work, then let's have a look. But
right, exactly. You know what I compare this to? Like Michael Jordan, who everybody knows, right? Like, can you imagine if he's like, that guy over there in the crowd, I don't like him, I'm not playing today. Right? Like, that doesn't happen. Only in courts does that happen. Gordon Miller, somebody he doesn't like shows up to watch him be a judge, and he's like, "That's it, I'm calling it a game." Right? It's the same thing. So Jennifer Golden, and what's her story? Her ex accused her of parental alienation. By the way, there's 3 connections. It's a guy named Ed Chuckowitz, who was the the hired gun psychiatrist who comes in to give you the bogus label. I think they labeled Gabe with delusions. They labeled Jennifer with parental alienation. I can't remember what they labeled Eric with, but basically like they're just using different words, same thing, all the same. And FCSI, that Family Crossroads Services Incorporated, they do the supervised visits. They're getting lots and lots of business. And so she faces some motion because she was not allowed to talk about the details of some report, but she didn't actually talk about the details of the report in our interview. And in fact, the guy doesn't specify, her ex doesn't specify what she said that was wrong. He just keeps saying she released personal information. And so this is why I said, you guys have all these restrictive laws. Don't think we're that much better.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Gabe Shapiro's ex's lawyer, her name is Dory Foster Morales, and she is the outgoing president of the Florida bar. So that is powerful, very powerful. So basically, in a sense, one of the most powerful lawyers in the state, because if you're the president of the Florida bar, that's what that entails. So he does this interview with me, I think on a Wednesday. By the following Tuesday, they are hearing the motion. They have a hearing on the motion related to the interview he had just done less than a week before. And here's how much power Dory has. She has gotten the judge to order Gabe to pay her bills, even though she's not his lawyer, to pay the Garden ad litem's bills. And also the Garden ad litem hired a lawyer to represent the Garden ad litem, the equivalent of CAFCAS. Why would the Garden ad litem need a lawyer? I don't know.
Well, actually, that's the difference in this country. They always do have a lawyer to represent them. That's what they do. So they all have.
Why would you?
They have a children's solicitor, it's called. So that
right.
is
Why?
Advocate. I know. Let's just pay everyone.
Right, and it's all. This is all a money-making scheme, and all of these people are being paid by Gabe. Now, Gabe started with his family, with his brothers, I think, something called JPay, which in America it's like the online system for sending money to people in jail. And it's a big deal, about 3/4 of the jail. So he does have wealth.
Yeah.
But when you're paying like 4 lawyers, it's not, he doesn't have billions, and he had millions. And I'm just wondering what taking millions from dad and putting it into the pockets of a group of court professionals, how that helps the kids. And so that's basically the ring. And it's fascinating. The First Amendment part it's very interesting in the US. I don't know how big a deal is free speech, free press in England. Is that taken seriously?
Most people want free speech over here, but it's extremely restricted.
Right, it's a lot.
It's very bad over here, yeah.
We generally take it seriously, though not always. Look, we take it so seriously that Larry Flint, who started, I think, Penthouse, he started a nudie magazine, that he wrapped himself up in the First Amendment. People accepted it, that this is the way he was exercising, and it became, and the people, you can watch The People versus Larry Flint. And yet here in 3 cases, they're restricting your First Amendment rights. And also back in the North Carolina case, no one seems to be talking to me who was at the hearing, which suggests that they've been told not to speak to the media. So basically it looks like the judge got mad, screwed up, came up with this bogus reason to call the trial, and now he's trying to cover it up. And because judges have this much power, they can sort of get away with it, though I'm speaking about it. But I think that's, I don't know if you want to call it presentation, but that's the end of the 2 places. If you got questions or things you wanted to add.
I think you've covered everything that I've noted down that you've been looking at. Did you talk about the case of Satin as well? They're part of the Miami-Dade.
Right. Yeah, that's the guy who's in jail.
Oh,
he's agreed to give up his First Amendment rights. He's agreed, and then he'll be let out of jail. It's remarkable. I mean, think in a place with a First Amendment where we wrap ourselves up, you have to say, I'll give it up, and then you can let me out of jail.
Yeah, it's a shocker, isn't it? It's
right. Yeah.
It's the same. It's similar as, accept the findings or you don't get your children. If you're not prepared to lie and you've got to co-parent with a child abuser.
Right. And in fact, in Eric's case, basically what they want him to do is to admit that he's the one putting these thoughts in the girl's head. and
Yeah.
then we'll let you see your daughter. And by the way, you ever agree to that, they'll never let you see your kids.
No, because
They'll just say you're
they
mentally ill and
exactly.
you're not, and you're never fixed.
They
You're
will.
never
They'll
fixed.
just turn on you. Yeah, they'll just say, "Oh, well, yeah, exactly." I mean, for me, it was I wasn't accused of putting the ideas into the boy's head. I was accused of getting the wrong idea of what they were telling me. You know, so then they're then told, "Mummy's confused." You know,
Right.
that's the
And what happens in the US is if you want to see your kids, they'll tell you to go to a court-appointed psychologist that you'll pay for.
yeah.
And only when that psychologist says you're cured will you be able to see your kids.
Yeah, exactly. That is it. That is
Right.
it. So you talked about you think it's to do with it's money making incentives for these people. That's why these horrors are happening all over
Mhm.
America and clearly over here as well. It's a money making scheme
Right.
as opposed to something a bit dark. Well, that is dark in itself, but you know, you do wonder sometimes who these people are. You know, what's their story? Are
They
they
are
child abuse to be protecting them to this level? Because you know people
they are
say, oh, they
people.
must be a paedophile, and it's not an extreme thing to think, is it? Because they're supporting people, they're just supporting
Right.
paedophiles so much, or you know, people who abuse emotionally or whatever it is.
Right.
It's like they've gone
It's
wrong.
they're like gangsters. Gangsters chose to make money through crime. These people chose to make money through the protection of child abusers and pedophiles. This is how they make money. Look, they by covering up the disclosure Gabe's child made, you create this perpetual divorce.
Yeah.
You target him, which allows FCSI to come in. Now, if they play ball, they get more cases like this. So they play ball.
So
You need a
did Gabe's child disclose sexual abuse against the mother?
not her, but someone near her.
Yeah.
I think it was like her boyfriend's sister or something like that, but
Oh,
in
right, yeah.
right in the sphere. So now you need a guy like Ed Chuckowitz to come in to give the right diagnosis, so he makes money. You need the woman's name is Anastasia Garcia. She's the guardian ad litem. You need a woman like guardian ad litem to recommend Chuckowitz, and then the case gets so hot, so she needs a lawyer.
Yeah.
And there you go. And there's your
Yeah.
scheme. There's the ring.
And
And it happens everywhere.
they dress it up like the position of the guardian in England is
Mhm.
to represent children's wishes and feelings. I don't
Mhm.
know what their tagline is over there, but
Same thing. Same thing.
because my children's wishes and feelings were very clearly expressed, and they went
And
in
they ignored them.
the absolute opposite. Yeah.
Right. Well, a boy discloses to two social workers that his dad put him in a dog crate, and you ignore that. So what do you? Amy Urban, the woman out of North Carolina, the guardian ad litem recommended that she go to jail. Was she representing the feelings and wishings of Amy's daughter or son? Because I don't think the child wanted their parent in jail. So how are you? And look, Megan is covering this. There's a case out of Washington. We're trying to put dad in jail for like 48 hours, and that's the guardian ad litem. So is that not? Are you representing the wishes? No, they ignore the wishes of the children because that's the way to make money. Because you're forcing kids into a situation they don't want to be in, which means it's never going to work. So you'll need a lot of services. You'll need maybe drugs. Big pharma makes tons of money. The other case that's similar to yours that I know, the Rucky case,
Yeah.
Sam, the mom, she got her airline where she worked called her and said, we don't understand why your kids are in so many drugs. This is like off the charts. Once they gave kids to dad, all of a sudden they were pumping them full of drugs. So there are court professionals who make a lot of money. There are lawyers who make a lot of money,
Yeah.
and big pharma in some cases makes a lot of money. And look, the Department of Social Services, they justify their existence. They are like in Danielle Jesser versus Jeff Farrington, the one with the dog crate. They have something called in-home services. All that is they show up announced and unannounced to see how you're taking care of your kids. So they can do that ad nauseum. This is how they justify having a job. Oh, I've got to do in-home service. I got to do in-home services. And they never, once you're in their clutches, they never let you go. Why would they let you go? Then they can't justify their own existence. This is one of the problems with bureaucracy. They feed on itself. a bureaucracy is a necessary evil, but if you let it get out of control at all, it spirals out of control. And that's certainly what happens with Child Protective Services. And it's absolutely what happens with the court system. The minute that they allowed a judge to appoint people in these cases, it went out of control, because they appoint one, that one appoints a second, recommends a second one, a third one, a fourth one. There's a case out of Connecticut that I did a while ago, Sunny Kelly. She had 12 court professionals. She had like 3 guardian ad litem, a parenting coordinator, a this, a that. 12. She spent over $1 million. And by the way, her son is still with her sexually abusing ex. And there's an anecdote where in front of a group of doctors, the dad walks in, his son is somewhere in the hospital room. He runs up to his son and starts massaging the back of his leg because there's a compulsion. Wasn't enough. Still gave him full custody.
Just turn a blind eye to these things. What is the solution then, Mike? I know you've said about appointing experts, but what else is the solution?
There's a bunch of them. There's like the ones that could probably pass. In England, you have to get rid of that law.
Yes.
The first solution is get rid of that law.
Yeah.
And we have to do certain things. What I would do is make at least a state law that's and it would say something like this. So let's do it in Missouri. In the state of Missouri, in any custody or divorce matter, the court shall not appoint a guardian ad litem or any other third party. Custody and divorce shall only be determined through the 2 parents, their attorneys, and any witnesses and evidence they may introduce. So what does that mean? It means no more court professionals. You want a custody trial, mom testifies, dad testifies, mom's witnesses testify, dad's witnesses testify. You got evidence, bring it forward. And that's it. And then that way, if you bring a psychologist in, they're a hired gun. And you can bring a psychologist in, but they're clearly a hired gun. And that's the other problem. This guy, Chekowitz, he's clearly biased. In Missouri, in St. Louis, we had a guy named James Reed, same thing, clearly biased, but they pretend like they're independent third parties. You think that the DSS social workers in that Jesser case were unbiased? Of course not. They're completely biased, all of them. Sara Royster, the guardian, they're all biased, and yet they have this veneer that they are unbiased. If I ruled the world, this is what I would do. I would say the court shall not make any custody decisions in custody or divorces. So what I don't know how this would have worked with your ex, but in my dream world, you and your ex would have had to work it out. Now you would have to write in some sort of like parental kidnapping laws, because like especially your ex would probably just take off then without it. But then they take off, because basically you can't leave with the kids for too long unless the other parent knows you've left. Yeah. And you figure it out. Yeah. And you know what? If your ex is toxic, well, guess what? That's your problem. You're not going to fix their toxicity, but I think involving the courts, if I could rule the world, the courts would not even make these decisions. Exactly. If you're divorced, split up the assets and you're done. And then that's it. And you figure out who gets the kids when, whatever. You put cameras in the courtroom. I like. Some people like jury trials. I don't like jury trials that much. The other thing, especially in the US, get rid of all these funding streams. We have things called Social Security Title 4B, Title 4E, VAVA, fatherhood initiative. These are all funding, what I call, they provide funds and they pervert things. So get rid of them. That'll help. Get rid of the guardian ad litem. I think my ultimate solution is the right one. But if you get rid of the funding streams, you get rid of all these third parties like CAFCAS. Get rid of CAFCAS. Yeah. They serve no purpose. They're not good. And that would fix the system. Get cameras in the courtroom and get rid of this whole privacy thing. It's all bogus and garbage. And it's just a way for the judges to cover things up. How much more could you say about Judge Jeremy Lee if you weren't bound by his order?
You could go through exactly what was said in court, exactly what witnesses say. I've talked about my evidence to defend myself. I've talked about the scientific evidence with the drugs that was completely ignored. Talking of which, what do you think about the change of the burden of proof being changed from the balance of probabilities to maybe not quite beyond all reasonable doubt, like criminal cases, but slightly higher than?
I think children, beyond reasonable doubt is your freedom. It's not for the safety of children. I don't know if it's preponderance of the evidence. I'm not sure like where it is, but the problem is it's never enough. It's just never enough. So I don't know if a boy tells two social workers that his dad put him in a dog crate, what else do you have to hear?
Exactly. Their voices are the number one evidence, isn't it? Their testimony.
Right, but they ignore it, but it's always ignored. It's always ignored. You do have to have a standard of evidence, but it's got to be clear how much evidence you got to provide. That's the other thing. Like the Rucky case, there's 5 kids in that case. All of them said dad abused them, all at one time or another.
Yeah, that's cooperative evidence, isn't it?
Right. Right. But so how do they counter it? Well, you're all being alienated. So obviously you said it. So it doesn't matter. I don't know how they get away with it in this case, Tharrington versus Jesser. It's just evidence on top. These kids come back with bruises all the time. All right. Like how many times do you have to see him bruise before you're like, maybe he's hitting them? Yeah. But they don't care. There's never enough evidence. And look, those are 4-year-olds, so it's harder. Like a 12-year-old, it's easier to get the evidence out. You've got to talk to them in a different way. So it becomes difficult, but courts are ignoring physical evidence like photos and video. They're ignoring what the kids say. They're ignoring what witnesses say. And I don't know what the standard needs to be. What I know is I've seen lots of cases where the evidence is just so clear that it's obvious what the system is doing is it's trying to ignore the evidence. And that's not the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, it just seems desperate, doesn't it, Mike? It just feels like, no matter what you do, you can't win with these people unless you accept.
Right. Unless you take.
I imagined it, or maybe I've got the wrong idea, and oh yes, I did do that. Unless the innocent parent goes along with that. But then again, you say as well, you've known cases where they've flipped it and said, no, you're unhinged because you've just said one thing.
Right. And look, the other thing is the abuser gets away with everything. Yeah. But if you've got like 4 Oreos in the corner of your room, your house is a mess. Your kid is running around with no shirt on, you're not taking care of them. If the fridge has too many sweets, you're giving the kid wrong food. And I don't think that does it. That absolutely happens. They look for anything to target the protective parent because then that justifies what they're doing.
Absolutely.
That's why the system needs to go down. Get rid of all of them. All of these court professionals. If you got rid of all of them, it wouldn't fix everything because cases like yours, I think, weren't decided because a whole bunch of court professionals came in. But it fixes a lot of it.
Yeah, it was the judge in my case who decided because Kafkas was brought in, but she was she did kind of, you could tell she swayed more towards him, and it wasn't looking that great, but it wasn't clearly, oh, she's done it, she's done this. It wasn't like that, but it certainly didn't help things. But I could tell the judge now looking back, he made his mind up months before the fact-finding trial.
Right. In the Rucky case, there's a document that I found. The trial was September 11th and 12th, 2013. There's a document from August of 2013, so right before the trial, to a school that said dad will have sole custody. Okay. Before the trial happened, somehow they knew what dad would have.
Yeah.
So that was decided at least in August, if not in like 2011. Yeah, no, look, I think a lot of these cases are decided. And as I said, I think a lot of these judges are bribed. And when you look at decisions like yours, I don't have the receipts. I don't have the receipts from David Knudsen either. All I have is the behavior. And if you're just willfully ignoring child abuse, sexual abuse, all of this abuse, I'm wondering if the abuser may not have slipped you a little money, and that is the reason why you want to ignore it. So I don't, in any specific case, I can't say for sure. In all of them, I'd say somewhere between 20 and 80% the judge is being bribed.
Wow. That's it, because I do wonder about that as well, because in my case, the judge went over and beyond by immediately removing my custody and then accusing me of the drugging with zero evidence, of course.
Right.
It was almost like over and beyond.
Right. If he was paid, it would make sense, right?
Wouldn't it?
Right. Yeah. By the way, folks, that's what's called circumstantial evidence. That's not proof.
Yeah.
But more than one person is sitting in jail strictly based on circumstantial evidence. So it's not proof, but it does make you wonder. Like it's the same thing in the Rucky case. He made her lawyer in that case her divorce lawyer conduct part of that trial, handcuffed to a wheelchair. I'm wondering why he would go so far and beyond. And by the way, he's then filed complaints against that lawyer. I'm just wondering why he went so far above and beyond. He gave him 100% of everything and ordered his ex-wife to pay child support. Well, you know, he gave him a lot of money. I'm wondering if some of that went to him. So the behavior is consistent with someone being bribed. And as I said, each case, who knows? But between all of them, somewhere between 20 and 80%, I think the judge is being bribed. I think we have an enormous amount of judges all around the world who are taking money to do this.
Yeah, I think there must be. Yeah, there's definitely something sinister going on, that's for sure. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this massive worldwide problem, would we?
Right. No, we wouldn't. And look, at the center of it is this movement for parental alienation. And the way it was used in your case, I see it all over the world. And it's so similar. It's absolutely amazing that your story and Joanne McDowell's basically the same. And by the way, she has a smear website against her, the way you have a smear website against you. It's like they've got it set up. And look, I'm not saying there's somebody in like a back room deciding all of this. I'm saying these techniques work and they spread, and that's how it happens. Both you and Sam, Sandra Grazzini Rucki, were two moms who had no criminal record, who for whatever reason were not just chased by law enforcement, but the elite. U.S. Marshals in her case, you had like the elite police force. How is that possible? Why did that amount of force be necessary for two women who have no criminal record? None.
Yeah, nothing. Exactly.
Right. And that raid was then reported, right? It was reported that the elite police force chased after you.
Yeah, it was reported, but not the actual smashing in. It was just the mother and the boys have been found safe. No, the boys have been found safe.
Right, but they said who was chasing you.
At 1 a.m. and then
right.
Away, yeah.
But it said it was the elite police force, right?
Well,
whatever it's called.
Elite. They didn't say elite, but
what the name of the police force?
Nottinghamshire Police Force, and there was 100 of them on assignment to look for us. And Judge Lee ordered the police force to stop all murder investigations in that. To
find you.
Yeah, and they had other police involved in all the way up to Scotland in case we were on the way.
Right.
Yeah.
In Sam's case, and that's what Sandra Grazzini Rucki goes by, the U.S. Marshals showed up. And so by saying it in the media, by saying the U.S. Marshals conducted the raid to arrest her, there's an implication, because the U.S. Marshals wouldn't be after you if you were jaywalking or, you went 15 over the speed limit, and sort of the same thing, the implication that this overwhelming force must mean you're really bad.
Really dangerous. Yeah.
Right. And so it's interesting that they use the elite force, leak it to the media, because the media found out somehow. Right. And I thought these things were not supposed to be found out. Yeah, and then all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And look, you and her were smeared in almost the same way. And like the main thing with her was 2020, but it was a lot. I think the main ones were BBC with you, but boy, if you go back 2, 3 years, 4 years, there's a lot of negative articles about you. Same way with her, and all throughout.
There's even somehow as well. One of them misreported. Sky News reported that I was charged with abduction. That's not true. I wasn't charged.
Right. Yeah. No, I know. They reported that she was charged with gun running, child trafficking. Yeah. No, they did the same thing with her all the time. They got a lot of things wrong, and it was like the media was bought off. Look, there was an article. This is how bad it was. They put out an arrest warrant for her. They sealed it, which means no one's supposed to know except for the people trying to arrest her. And then they leaked it to the media because this reporter, his name is Brandon Stoll, writes about it. And right at the end of the article, the sheriff comments on the sealed warrant, which you're not actually supposed to do. If it's sealed, you can't comment on it. And he said it was a computer glitch. And I'm reading this, I'm going, if it was a computer glitch, that seems to be the story. Boy, if you've got a computer glitch that takes a sealed warrant and makes it public, that, better fix that. Now, they didn't go back to the computer glitch. And in that article, there's another guy, Jason Polinsky. And so the sheriff was from the county, Polinsky was from the town, who also commented on the sealed warrant, and nobody noticed it. And that's the level of coordination. What actually happened is the cops got together with the journalists and they said, here's how we're going to write the article.
Yeah, let's
And nobody knows
sensationalize
that.
it.
Right. And stuff like that was happening in your case. And again, I don't know what that is exactly, but there's a level of coordination there
Yeah,
that the entire system, and this system spreads from the court to the police, is determined to have these things happen.
yeah,
And that's why it's good we're finding each other, because we're showing how it's a global phenomenon.
absolutely.
From
So
North Carolina, Miami-Dade, that Rucky case, that's Minnesota, that's like Midwest, but pretty far north. It's very cold in the
I
winter.
lived in Minnesota. When in 1995, I was a nanny in there, Minnesota for a year. Minnetonka, I think it was.
Right.
I was there for a few months, and then other
Right.
places in the States.
So
Yeah.
for people who don't know, you guys both go by Sam. You
Yeah.
both have dark hair, both accused of parental alienation, both smeared by the mainstream media, both chased by elite police forces. It messes with my head because I know Sam really well. And you look a lot alike. The big difference is the accent. The accents are completely different. But yeah, no, it's definitely a global phenomenon, but people are finding each other. Megan and I interviewed Liz Perkins, who's done a lot of work on this for the Daily Express. And we'll hopefully get people on from other countries who have done this kind of work.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it was really remarkable listening to Liz, because it's basically the same. That law that you guys have, that's different. We have less restrictions, a lot less. That law is draconian and needs to be gotten rid of. And I don't know, but there's not a groundswell to change it, because unless you're involved in the system, you don't know how the law affects people. And that's part of the problem, right?
That's it. Yeah. But yeah, we need to.
All right. Well, hopefully we can fix it. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. You've covered a lot, Mike. So thanks for coming on, and
Okay.
keep in touch, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Okay. All right. Have a good week.
You too.